The Vasa. The story of the Vasa is really rather fascinating. It's sort of a story of government or kingship run amok. The ship was commissioned to be built by the King of Sweden, but since other ships were being built that were larger than his ship, he ordered a third gun deck to be added on top of the two that were already in place. Consequently, this made the ship rather top-heavy. If you look at the model from the stern, you'll see that it is very, very high, and yet the waist or the width of the ship is very narrow, which would make it very top-heavy and tippy. At one point, while she was still tied to her moorings before she ever set sail, the captain had the crew run from one side of the ship to the other, and she rocked so violently he had to have them immediately stop for fear they would swamp the ship. When the ship finally did sail across Stockholm Harbor to get her supplies, she was hit by a gust of wind and immediately rolled on her side and sank there in the brackish water. At the time, a Swedish commission looked into the sinking of the ship and determined that it was either an act of God or an error on the part of the king, neither of which could have possibly occurred. Therefore, they let the whole matter lie. The guns of the ship were eventually recovered, but the ship itself lay in the brackish water of Stockholm Harbor until 1961, when she was raised, moved into a building which became her permanent residence, and she is now a complete ship in a museum built all around her. It's really a fascinating museum, and anyone visiting Stockholm should not miss visiting the Vasa Museum. Betty and I have been there several times, and each time we go there, we see something new and different. The ship is undergoing continual restoration and preservation there. One of the latest things to be added to the collection, life-size depictions of the people whose bodies were recovered from the ship. They've been reconstructed forensically and look amazingly lifelike, right down to the whiskers and hairs on their chins and on their heads. My model of the Vasa is almost exactly as the ship appears in the museum, except that the museum ship has all of the decorations painted rather gaudy colors, whereas on my model the decorations are all gilded as opposed to painted.